Hello, this is Phil Fowave. I want to talk about a noise tape by Lusters today. Way Complesso is the name. Just a little trigger warning. I'm gonna talk about a certain way of misconduct in this review of this noise tape. So when you're sensitive about topics like that, you'd be advised to see what's best for you if you want to listen to it or not. About the tape itself, the title translates to Way Complesso being Italian. From the get-go, some vile imagery is being portrayed there and right in the title, especially together with the name of the project, Lusters. Lusters consists of Olli Tanskanen of various projects, one of them being Edge of Decay, and Santeri Salomaa, primarily of Circle of Shit. The tape was released in 2023 via Finnish tape, CD, and digital label Satuta Hata. And it's straightforward artwork and packaging. Artwork is in military green printed thick paper with credits inside and photo of an upside down world as a front cover. Why there is an upside down world, I think we'll see soon enough when we talk about the matters portrayed on that tape, or at least how I interpret the sounds going on there. First piece on the tape being Losing Confidence. Piece starts with a scorchingly hot feedback and junk metal. It seems to be recorded with multiple mics, as the junk metal compression doesn't drown out the feedback too much, which usually happens when you just record like with one hot mic. Makes sense. It's two performers, one doing feedback laden harsh noise and the other one is the junk noise artist. It's pounding and screeching frantically right out of the gate. There's no build up really. Midway through the piece, some feedback noise picks up intensity, sounds adjacent to moaning almost. The noise stays heavily compressed in a mid state while junk fills out lows and highs without hurting the ears too much, which I really enjoy. It ends with a loop, almost guitar-like, while fading out. It's a nice tease, really. And given the title, this might try to portray a lively atmosphere and a certain protagonist slipping into unconsciousness by foul play. Second piece, Way Complesso. The title makes sense. Starts with chirping and twirling electronic noise. Sounds kind of itchy. There's voice loops going on and separate noise swells illuminate the dark sporadically. It sounds faint, distant. It's uncomfortable to listen to. Audible junk noise comes in halfway through, though be it thin and breathy in sound almost. In general, the piece is more electronic, disassociated in feel than physical opener that's been more grounded in, let's call it, imminent reality. My interpretation of the sounds in the piece is there is a certain disassociation in a group of spectators going on, like some sort of fainting, if you will. Compository-wise, the piece again fades into a void. More about that later. Third track on the tape. It's a rhythmic synth loop, almost dance music adjacent. There's blown out noise and shouted voices. Junk screeches and grind reappear a little more prominently than in the previous track. Voices that sound less commanding and stern, more like frantic and primal. There's breathy screeching noises sprinkled in. The whole track sounds kind of dirty. The piece flirts with power electronic sensibility. It's rhythmic, very straightforward, and overall there's a very unwell mood. Though the piece brings the most structure to the table until now, it's not a release at all. It sounds just vile. Given the previous pieces leading up to this one, the aesthetics and the title of this track get a completely different twist. It ends in a maelstrom of harsh, partly electronic, partly physically produced noise. It's a remarkable track though. Goosebumps really, though uncomfortable. Fourth track, the junk noise is back. It's cluttering and clanking as ever. Vile noise, crunch texture, swell and push the junk. It features a saxophone, a screaming and yearning. Guess how it comes off in the grand context of this assortment of pieces. It's bleak, nothing remotely fun or nice about this piece really. All sound is hollow, except of sporadic mumbles cutting through the mix. Also, the saxophone and the junk movement disappear in a sea of crackle and noise creatures at some point. It's the longest track with 8 minutes, but the most subdued, I would say, as in the palettes, the most sparse. But at the same time, it's the bleakest and most straightforward in what's going on regarding the narrative of the tape, or my perceived narrative. When listening closely, it's a test of patience and self-editing to a certain degree, to not let the mind paint a too grand of an image. It feels like our protagonist is in a contemporary spotlight where they probably don't want to be in at the moment. Enough said though, you don't need me to paint that picture any further. And after listening to that piece, I really need a moment to catch my breath. Fifth track on the tape, there's damaged sounding electronic and junk harsh noise. Starts like a broken version of the first track almost. The sounds swim in a sea of tape hiss. Everything's disjointed. Noise is weeping and clattering. There's additional voice loops that add extra despair and aimlessness. The sounds grow a little in size through the addition of reverb, but also not really. They just fade into a big nothing before reverb swell suddenly fades and leaves us with a sparse version of a feedback and some cluttering. There's a sense of devastation and confusion and panic even that breaks at some point and leave the protagonist with a bleak reality. Future narrative to be up for listeners' interpretation. Will there be any conclusion for the protagonist or for the listener? Is there healing even? It's a very negative feeling. The last track, or like all 5 tracks, leave in the listener, and yeah, it's a, just like I mentioned earlier, a test in patience and self-editing to not paint a picture too big, just stay in a comfortable headspace while listening to that thing, to not get bummed out too much, even though it's reality. And at this point, before getting into the general feeling, it's commendable by the artists to touch these kind of subjects in a very artistic manner, just through sound, not too much obvious information and sound. And it's impressive how they did that. And the last piece was a masterclass in how to do that and transport images and narratives like these. My general feeling, it's an impressive effort on all fronts, I gotta say. Sound wise, it packs a lot of material and not really styles, since it is cohesive, but variation and dynamics into the track list. Each piece is different from each other, but it all serves the grander narrative and just plays out perfectly over the course of the 5 pieces. The mix is transparent enough to allow deep listening, but carries impact while not relying on blown out tape saturation all the time, really. And also not compressing the sound a lot, feels like. Sounds stand on their own and don't drown out each other. That itself brings a richness and bleakness to the front that is kind of fresh, I think. The themes, or at least how I interpreted the narrative, are vile and throughout negative. There's no joy here, and the tape touches uncomfortable subject matter, but doing so through indirect sound info and vague track names and in a tasteful manner, just like I mentioned earlier, or at least as much as that's possible, because it's still heavy narrative, and but I think it's well done here. I am a firm believer that all arts have their place and a reason to exist, but I'm also a strict chooser, admittedly, especially in the industrial noise branch of experimental music. Taboo topics are often portrayed in a purposely intense fashion, and I am not really interested in that. It bores and annoys me and wears me down. I'm just not wired for art that wears its negative imagery on its sleeve, even though I understand that art like this needs to exist. However, I like what Lusters are doing here. It works on different levels. If I'll be willing to listen to this tape anytime soon after this deep listening session, I don't know, because it is intense, and especially Contemporary Spotlight pushed me good. But on a more superficial level, it bridges electronic harsh noise and the signature Finnish junk metal abuse in a very creative, well-crafted manner. And I also gotta say that these pieces are well performed. It really shines through that they just, didn't record 30 minutes of noise on tape and just cropped out certain moments. The pieces have a start and an end. It sounds very intentionally performed, and since the tracks all exist in a shorter realm, you might say, this seems very intentional, and there actually seem to be some performative compositions going on. Yeah, it's really well done. It's a masterclass in what it is doing, not only in how they touched certain topics, but also how the thing sounds. Great tape. Thank you, Lusters. Thank you, Satutahata. And thank you for watching. See you next time.